Good day. My name is Luke Bailey, and this is my post-literature review presentation for the University of Seattle, Research Course 625. The following is the table of contents for this post-literature review presentation: introduction, purpose statement, literature review questions, research study background, literature review, conclusion, and any questions. A literature review, according to Baker, is a tool that provides a researcher context on the information that they are using for their dissertation. The information that is utilized for a dissertation includes, but is not limited to, scholarly articles, peer-reviewed periodicals, books, conference reports, and other vetted resources, which are relevant to the researcher's particular area of research. The researcher's aim in a literature review is to determine which information can be used to integrate existing literature with that of the researcher's study. Also, Greenfield and Greener state that it is also essential in literature review for the researcher to describe the relationship between each body of work that the researcher is considering to use in their study. Furthermore, a literature review can also help a researcher resolve conflicts between different studies, identify new ways to approach a research study, and make recommendations for future research on the topic. The purpose statement for this literature review is as follows. The purpose of this literature review is for the researcher to develop an intimate knowledge of the current research regarding the use of analytics in business to drive decision-making. According to Hart, an articulate literature review will allow the researcher to identify the general areas of concern that might give pointers to specific matters worth studying. This will provide the researcher with a comprehensive understanding of analytics and their use in decision-making and ensure that the literature that is being employed appropriately aligns with the topic of study. To better support the purpose of the researcher's literature review, the following questions have been crafted to create a direct connection to the meaning of the literature review. Question 1. Does the research being reviewed provide an adequate foundation for new research on the use of analytics to drive decision-making? Question 2. Does the literature being reviewed provide information that links analytics to decision-making? The purpose of the questions is designed to assist the researcher in refining the topic of study and ensuring that the researcher can generate more than one viewpoint as it relates to the subject of the research. This idea is further cemented by Badke, who points to the fact that having a series of questions that can be addressed by the collection and analysis of data will allow the researcher to conclude the research that is being reviewed. For the purpose of this literature review, Badke points that the researcher will be able to determine if the data has a positive or negative impact, no impact, or various alternative impacts, and if the resource is still needed as it relates to the use of unbiased analytics to drive decision-making. For organizational leaders to capitalize on data-driven decision-making processes, Ben reasons that organizations need to have people and systems in place to understand the various roles that data and information can have and how to take a rational approach to making decisions. Today's organizations have access to tremendous amounts of data that can highlight information about consumer trends, demographics, economic trends, user behavior, and internal data. Also, organizations rely on data to help with the development of efficiency measures, contingency response plans, and financial calculations. Currently, the boundaries of data science and data-driven decision-making processes are challenging to define. For data science to serve organizations effectively, Provo and Fawcett state that it is important for academics and organizations to understand and explain exactly what data science has to offer and embrace the tools that analytics has to offer organization decision makers. For that reason, organizational leaders need to understand the benefits of unbiased developed analytics better to drive decision making. Provost and Fawcett believe that this will help organizations to achieve long-term sustainability initiatives, meet stakeholder needs, and cultivate improvements to the processes for collecting, measuring, and managing organizational performance. The success of an organization and its leadership in today's data-oriented business environment demands that leaders can understand the internal and external strengths, challenges, opportunities, and threats that they face. For organizational leaders to understand their SCAT, they need to think data analytically. The function of this research study will introduce relevant concepts about the importance of employing analytics to drive decision making. 4 terms that are consistently addressed in literature and research within the realm of data-driven decision making are data, information, systems, and process. These terms can be misleading or confusing depending on their implication. To distinguish their definition as it relates to the purpose of this literature review, these terms have been defined as follows. First term we look at is data. Structured data is information that is derived from a fixed format system. This is data that can be efficiently processed by computers because the data that is being reviewed is linear and does not require further standardization. Semi-structured data is defined as information that has not been organized into a specific database, yet it still contains characteristics such as metadata, which makes it much more austere than processing raw or unstructured data. Unstructured data is defined as information that is difficult to process because it is not too quickly sorted without manual manipulation and organization. Data resource in this categorization can come from a multitude of different sources. In this setting, it is essential that researchers remember that correlation is not the reason for causation. Term 2, information. Information is referred to by Davenport and Harris as a process for extracting and deciphering data so that it can be used to develop strategies and actions that drive decision-making process, resolve complex issues and problems, and help organizations to capitalize on tactics. Term 3, systems. Systems refer to the medium in which data is processed and displayed so it is suitable for analysis, monitoring, reporting, and decision-making. According to Klasnick and Puto, systems is a set of entities that work together as part of an interconnected network or device that allows for data to be coherently processed and displayed so that it is suitable for analysis, monitoring, reporting, and decision-making. Term 4, process. Process refers to a series of activities or phases that are taken to achieve a desired or specific outcome. A perspective that corresponds with Thamar and Paluas, who view the process as the method that is used to correctly gather information at a specific time and deliver those results for analysis. When an organization implements a detailed process, they reduce the number of errors in their data observation and delivery of those results. Davenport and Harris shared that adequate methods also relate to the way that an organization approaches operations, tactics, and strategies. Next, we will review the findings of this literature review. It is vital that organizations do not omit data, regardless of the constraints or effects that the information can have on a predetermined decision. Moreover, Sholo and Gallers found that unpacking the use of analytics is not always clear, even where organizations can successfully employ the use of these systems to collect, sort, and delineate data. Additional findings show that decision support systems and data-driven decision-making should have a more cohesive relationship. This led the researcher to study the relationships between the use of unbiased analytics and decision-making. For data to be unbiased and provide an accurate depiction of what is happening within the context of the environment that is being reviewed, Agrawal and Morgan agreed that organizations should measure, at minimum, 2 opposing metrics to get an accurate assessment of the situation. At the root of much of this literature review is an assumption that organizations wish to improve their performance based on establishing data performance standards, benchmarks, and trends analysis. Data consists of a vast amount of clients' records, says Klinsky and Puto. Files could be comprised of audio data, photos, graphics, text messages, comments in social networking websites, digital papers and books, information coming from blogs, and technical information. As a result of the various resources to retrieve data from, it is essential to reflect on how data should be processed and how these approaches are being reported in the literature. Regardless of the culture or interaction that an organization is trying to create to get the most out of their data, Watson states that slicing and dicing data and data visualization is not data mining. Data mining requires tools that incorporate algorithms and processes that are designed specifically to find hidden relationships in data. For the final part of this literature review presentation, the researcher provides the following conclusion. According to the literature reviewed for this paper, there is a common thread that is shared by all of the authors. Organizations want to leverage the use of data to gain a competitive edge in today's business environment. As such, an intricate part of retaining that competitive advantage is for organizations to employ the use of analytics to help decipher the messages and data that will help an organization identify their strengths, challenges, opportunities, and threats. The quality of the decisions that are made within modern organizations is affected by the effective and efficient use of available data. As much of the literature during this review has demonstrated, many complex systems are used to process data. As such, it is essential for organizational leaders to understand the proper use of analytics to drive decision-making and to ensure that the data that is being used is unbiased. If the information is not correct, then the decisions that are based on that data could generate a wrong or harmful outcome that could be destructive to both internal and external stakeholders of an organization. The information gathered during this literature review points to the idea that there is no longer a question that organizations in all industries need to be cognizant of their available data and invest in a system to assist them in analyzing and utilizing this wealth of information. In this literature review, the researcher has attempted to present a knowledge of the literature as it relates to data, analytics, and decision making. Also, the researcher has been able to answer the two questions outlined at the beginning of this literature review and further demonstrate the importance of employing unbiased analytics to drive decision making. Are there any questions or comments? If not, thank you for your time.